Hey, happy Sunday. This is PFG Live, the podcast that investigates your flatness in terms of fringe lines. Welcome aboard. We got a good crowd already yapping it up in Discord. And in YouTube, we have CJ Stevens, who was the first in line. Welcome aboard, sir. Carl Tauber in the People's Republic of Rhode Island reports 78 degrees overcast and muggy in the RI. CJ Stevens says 92 Fahrenheit and clouds are coming in down in East Tennessee. Welcome aboard, sir. Let's see. We're already getting stuff in the Discord. We have Mr. DBX is reporting White Plains, New York. Corrected report. 140 at 06 knots, visibility 10 miles, scattered 2400, broken 2800, temperature 272.21, altimeter 3010. Dale in the Edmonton of Alberta reports 20 degrees science, perfectly standard at 54% relative humidity, mostly cloudy in the Edmonton, in the rat-free Alberta, Canada. Josh, also in the Canada, but over in southern Manitoba, is reporting from a local BTAR. Winds are 310 at 8 knots. Temperature 2.14. And the remarks are weird. Bill Olney in the home of Air Force Research Labs reports from Rome, New York. It is pouring. 86 degrees Fahrenheit, 45% relative humidity. Oh, no, 65%. And he says he's sorry. No problem. Thomas Hardy says it's 29.9 degrees Celsius, below 20% relative humidity in Karlsruhe, Germany. Welcome, sir. Robin says Drunken Noodle was tasty. I swear I'm coming to do a show there because I want you to take me to wherever it is you go. Unix Carbide reporting from the Brooklyn of New York, 83 degrees Fahrenheit and a little balmy. 11% relative humidity in the filament chamber. That's the only only place in Brooklyn that is going to be 11% relative humidity. Let's see. Who else is here? Oh, Arsted is here. Welcome, sir. Arsted reports 80 degrees Frankenstein, 60% relative humidity in the Peoria of the Illinois. Welcome, sir. Do you say Illinois or Illinois? Illinois, of course, is the proper pronunciation, but, sometimes we get a little... Paul Morley from Dallas, Texas says it's in the mid-80s. Not too bad. Well, nice to hear from you. Chris O says 70 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy, 71% relative humidity in Los Angeles, California. Welcome, sir. Bart Harkema, 21 degrees science, 70% relative humidity north in the north of the Netherlands. Welcome. Good crowd showing up. In Discord today, we have Dale, DBX, Josh, Robin, Paul, Bill Olney, Quentin, Unix Carbide, Bart Harkemuth, Carl Tauber, Chris O, Thomas Hardy, Arsted, and AJF. Welcome aboard. So, kind of a busy week. It wasn't the kind of busy week that it always is, but it was a busy week. I have some tidbits we can cover before we get into main topics here. First of all, congratulations to our good friend John Grimsmo, who recovered his stuff from the UPS disaster surrounding Blade Show, and he got his stuff back. I won't steal his thunder. He'll probably make a little video on it, but if you go to the Business of Machining podcast, you could hear the story, and it was quite the story. And ironically, in the same week that we heard his story, I had shipped an order for PFG Stones, 8-inch and minis, if you must know. Nice combination, by the way. Down to Arizona. Arizona. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, I'm sorry.
What could possibly go wrong?
That's Steve's job. So it disappears. We tracked it. UPS tracks it to their facility in Illinois. I'm looking at you guys, and it stops. Like, end of tracking. So I filed a claim, and we're working that out. It was fully insured because of its value in my system. So that's cool. I should be able to. I'm waiting to hear. I made a claim, and we're waiting. So now, in a stunning turn of events, last week I sent a shipment to the Netherlands. I had a very bad experience with a shipment to the Netherlands. I lost money on it. It left a very bad taste in my mouth, and I was like, I'm never shipping to the Netherlands. So I get an order from the Netherlands. Well, now we're smarter. We 100% insure all international shipments, number one. Number two, we asked everybody in each country what the best way to ship is. The people in the Netherlands said UPS. We shipped UPS. And we learned about the exemptions from duty with respect to the agreed upon blah, blah, blah. I can't quote you everything, but there's an exemption for under $2,500 and not on the evil list. And if you can comply with those things, you get an exemption. And I learned how to claim that exemption on the paperwork, put labels on the box. 49 hours door to door to the Netherlands. Meanwhile, I can't get a package to Arizona. Go figure. Anyway, those were the shipping stories illuminated by our good friend, Mr. Grimsmo's story. It's all working out in the end. We're going to be okay. And Bart, I could tell you the city at another time. So yeah, congratulations to Mr. Grimsmo. I can't wait to hear how that ends up. Oh, by the way, just again, not to steal his thunder, but he had his knives sent to a mysterious place in Buffalo, New York, from which he will be doing U.S. shipping, and that's really super cool. Oh, I got a correction from our good friend WidgetWorks, Dale, who is in the chat. So last week I published a short video on, and we're going to talk a little bit about it today, using PETG and PLA in the same process. We'll detail that later. In which I said that if I had the H2D printer, I would have had zero poopage on that process. He called me out on it, and he said, no, you'd have some poopage, but a little bit. So I was wrong. It wasn't zero. It was less poopage, as he's pointing out in the chat. So we're going to go with less poopage, which, by the way, I played bass for back in the 80s. So Carl, our good friend Carl, who is also in the chat, sent me this magnificent piece of trivia, and I will read this to you. It's going to be hard to read on your screen. He says, nerd alert. Trivia tidbit. I recently spoke with an old friend who is a manufacturer of plastic packaging films for food. He told me that the barrier material used to control transmission of oxygen, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen is EVOH, ethylene vinyl alcohol copolymer. Say that 5 times fast. It is used in a multi-layer design with other materials to provide mechanical properties, printability, heat seal ability, etc. No polymer is, here it is, folks, no polymer is suitable for moisture control, which requires vacuum metallization on or in the most stringent cases, foil. Nothing new here, but good to hear it from someone with 40 years in the business. Carl, thank you very much. This was like completely unsolicited, but if you recall in the past, we did all of our experiments and we landed on the metallized Mylar bags, which are available on Amazon, as being the winner for keeping our filament dry in storage. And this is just a confirmation of that from somebody who's in the business. Carl, thank you very much. That was super useful and very satisfying. So those are the tidbits I had. I don't think I have any more community items. If I missed anything, you guys could put it in the chat, and we'll cover it. Last weekend was Independence Day, and we took that weekend off, and that was good because it was very much needed. You may have learned that I had my driveway redone, and why is that important? Well, let's see if I can get a picture for you. We had the entire driveway ripped up and put into and a new bed put down. I mean the full job. And I won't bore you with the details of what we found when when we ripped stuff up. But what I learned from the guys that did the asphalt was that we should not drive on it for 7 days, which was cool. We're good with that. In fact, today's the day we get to drive on it again. But they gave us a sheet, and we read the sheet, and it turns out that there are processes that are not as simple as let it cool off, right? That's, of course, part of it. But there's an oxidation process. There's a polymerization process, that both of which are going on in the asphalt, in particular in the bitumen. We had a little discussion of how you pronounce bitumen, which is a natural gooey long chain polymer, and I'm sure Carl will correct me if I'm wrong. And that's why you have to wait 7 days. It's like letting epoxy. It's almost. I don't think it's exactly like letting epoxy cure, but it's real close. Because epoxy is a 2-part process, and this isn't. But I'm very happy to report. Well, I guess it is. I guess I'm wrong. If it involves oxygen. Long story short, it's more complicated than we know. Oh wait, we're just getting this message from Carl. Let's see. Carl Tauber from Rhode Island, you're on the air. Hello. Are you on the air?
Now I'm on the air.
Now sorry. You're on the air. Please put a sharp point on my pencil, sir, as it were.
The curing of the bitumen is very much like the curing of, old-fashioned oil-based house paint.
Okay.
And it is an oxidative reaction. It does take time, obviously, because they want the stuff gooey so they can handle it when they apply it. Just like house paint.
Mm-hmm.
Needs to flow and needs to level out brush marks and stuff like that. And then it needs to become impervious and waterproof. And you're correct in the sense of epoxy is also a chemical process, but it's a very different chemical reaction. And that's, just a bit of trivia, essentially.
We kind of live for trivia, don't we?
Okay.
Carl, thank you.
That's what I got. You can put me back in the audience.
Okay, you could go have some more finger sandwiches. Thank you very much. Good. I'm glad I wasn't super far off base. So that was the big deal this week. We got that done and cured, and we were able to use it real soon. What else? Those are the big things. So this past week, I was asked to. I've been working with a company that's doing little drone research vehicles. This is a direct output from the University of Auburn, and they have some interesting designs that are under development. And the company that I'm helping out is doing a take on those designs. Anyway, long story short. I helped on printing all of the parts for the most recent incarnation, which I didn't ask if I could show pictures of, so I can't do it today, but maybe another day. And that's all going well. But they had a research incident. I think that's how you go. A unscheduled disassembly. So I had to quickly print up a bunch of parts. Oh, isn't that funny? Silo is here. Welcome aboard, sir. That's your alma mater. I didn't put those together, but there you go. So they needed parts like real quick. So I was able to fire up the 3D printers and get stuff cranked out. So interestingly, we had made parts in Polysonic PLA Pro, and that's the same material that we're going to be talking about, the lap holders today. And you've seen me use this material before, and I have some comments about this material. But it's black, and in the sunlight, it absorbs heat. This is not a shocker. So they were seeing some evidence of that. And I had already purchased for tests some of the Polymaker, I have to get all these right, Poly-Lite HT-PLA, high temperature PLA, which has good behavior at high temperatures. It doesn't soften as easily. So I quickly started, and they wanted to try it. So we printed a bunch of parts, the overwhelming majority of parts in this high temperature PLA, and the report from the field is that it worked great, and it's being very successful. I think I showed. There we go. There's the unit going together, and it's mostly white. The joke was that it was the 1960s police car look, black and white. So so that went really well, but they experienced some cracking. Not super surprising, because it's essentially at normal temperatures like a regular PLA, and a regular PLA is a little bit brittle. So I wanted to get back to the PLA Pro, which is amazingly tough for a PLA. And I ordered and have not yet received this material, the Polymaker, this is actually the name, I'm not making this up, the Polymaker Polysonic PLA Pro in white. Unix Carbide says, you traded a microphone for this drone? No, I did not trade. I did not trade the microphone for the drone. However, this material is on its way, and we're looking forward to using it. So hopefully it'll have the same mechanical properties as the PLA Pro, except be white, and that'll handle the thermal issues, etc., etc. Oh, I remember the line. Okay, Unix, it took a while. Got it. By the way, Unix, it's 104 miles to Chicago. Just want to leave that out there. So when I was printing, we're going to talk today about the lapping stuff. And this is the lapping handle. Oh, thank you. So Tucker is here. Welcome aboard, Tucker. Tuck reports it's 85 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny in Buffalo, New York. What a coinky dink. We just said the words Buffalo, New York. He says if you want to try some ASA carbon filled, hit him up. Okay, thank you, sir. I know ASA is interesting material. I actually have a little bit of it, but not carbon filled. So in the process of making the 8-inch laps, which you are no doubt familiar with because we showed it on the thumbnail, I had to design a handle for it that provided thermal isolation, the ability to hold it, and now I have to be able to rotate it, because I don't want to touch the lap with my hands. But I want to be able to rotate it, especially when we're conditioning the laps together, the conditioning lap and the working lap. So I designed this. This is P1 if you're looking on video. If you're not looking on video, it looks like it was in the thumbnail. This was the P1. I got a couple of dimensions wrong. And of course, it lasted its 15 minutes. It did what it had to do. And then we made P2. P2 works great, and it has gone on the laps, and they are now handleable. I got a message from Mr. Grimsmo, who said, "Did you make them easy to remove because he got some rust from washing his laps, and he wanted to make sure I didn't get that on my laps." And the answer to the question for John is yes. You can see there's just a couple of screws. You take out the screws and the two halves come apart. So if I ever wanted to do that, I could. Another thing that I do is I do have air in the basement, in the lapping area. So for storage, I wouldn't do this during the process at all. But for storage, I could blow them off. And then I hit them with the CRC SP350 rust inhibitor, which I've kind of come to like. It's thinner. It's a thinner material than like an LPS3. Adam Booth is a big fan of it. I think he has a deal with CRC. That's how I learned about it, and I started using it on my B200 balancing rings, and I like it a lot. So the laps are sprayed with SP350 when they're sitting around, and that keeps them from getting corrosion. I did see corrosion in the grooves of my 6-inch laps, and as soon as I saw those, I started with the SP350. So, so that's where the handles came from, and they have a feature which is a hole on the periphery that goes into the hole I made on the lap. See previous video. And that gives you something locked in so that you could rotate the lap. The 8-inch laps, I will remind you, are 17 pounds. So we're not like tossing these around willy-nilly. So that's where the 3D printed part comes in for the lap handle, and that is made out of the PLA Pro. I told you that whole story to bridge these two. Robin reports he's got some Sunlu PLA Plus 2.0 that prints quite nicely. Excellent. Yeah, I think the general category of PLA Plus or PLA Pro, or the now deceased Tough PLA from Bamboo, it's a nice alloy. It's a very nice formulation, and it does print absolutely beautifully. So I'm a big fan. So in printing these, I messed around with the supports, okay? And if you look closely at the thumbnail, you'll see a little support action there, a little tree support action. And in doing so, between a little bit of warping and a little bit of me getting frisky with the spacing between the supports and the material, I got it to weld. So the tree supports were welding to the part. It happens sometimes, and it only happened over about 1.5 inches distance of that arc on the lap holder. So I had to get in there with a little chisel, and I'm kind of peeling out the support material. And I am here to tell you that when they say PLA Pro, PLA Plus, or as Bamboo called it, Tough, Tough, what was it called? PLA Tough. It is very, very tough. It is surprising that it's called a PLA and you cannot crack it. It bent out of the way, and I had to put a lot of force to get those bits and pieces out of there. It was pretty nice. Pretty nice performance. I was very pleased with it, and I could recommend it. I have plenty of the black waiting on the white. This is a great quote from Unix Carbide. He says, "I've come to believe filament brands are like pizza joints. The places with high traffic always sell a great slice." Excellent. Robin asks, and Unix goes on to say, Polymaker, Sunlu, they both turn over a lot of pizza. Robin asks, do you print with the doors open? So the spiritual answer to your question is yes. But I've switched to those risers. You've seen my printer. Some other person on the internet designed these risers for the bamboo. I put the risers in to make that little extra space for the rubbing of the PTFE tubes. And that riser not only supports the AMS up in the air, but it also has a place to slide the top glass in. So you take this top glass, you go up an inch and you slide it in, and that's how you open it up. So the answer is yes. I do open the top glass, and it works great. I love that stuff. It has become the first thing I reach for if I need to make a 3D print, which also means I have this big stack of regular PLA that's going down to Sam, and I'm sure Sam will have a good time with it. So, yeah, this is sort of the bridge between two topics. Let me talk a little bit more about we'll wrap it up on the laps here, but the laps are coming out very well. They have visited just about every machine in the shop except for the CNC mill. And guess what's coming next? The CNC mill. So the laps, I don't have pictures to show you. The laps have grooves, okay? My previous 6-inch laps, which were outstandingly successful, have a checkerboard pattern on it. Robin and I discussed it a while back, and Robin came up with a great suggestion, and I have what I affectionately call the Renzetti moat around the outside so that the slurry stays on the lap instead of dribbling over the side. That works out great. And I think I'm going to try another pattern. I'm going to keep that on the QT for the moment until I design it, and then I'll do a video and I'll show you. But slight tweak to the groove pattern based on experience and staying up too late thinking about it. And that's coming next. So these guys are going to go into the CNC lathe and get their grooves cut out by a carbide tool, which I made. So it's a D type tool made out of a random carbide piece of scrap. And I did all the 6 inches with that tool, and now I'll do the 8 inches with that tool, and it came out great. I believe it's a 15-degree included angle V cutter, and I think I go down 30 thousandths. It works fantastically well. So that's kind of the update on the big laps. A little slow on the big laps this week, but except for the handles, which we got working. And then we talked about the urgent 3D printing, which got done, which was great. And now let's talk a little bit about this PETG and PLA. I did a short video. I did a long form video, which was very short, posted to the YouTube channel about using a PETG interface layer when making PLA parts, or vice versa. So let me bring up a picture of that, because that was pretty exciting. I think that'll do it. So there's a picture of what I did. Those are 3 drone parts, and the issue was that I wanted to try the trick of using the PETG interface. Now, PETG won't stick to PLA, or won't weld to PLA, and PLA won't weld to PETG. So it's ideal for using it as a support interface for the other one. But I was a little nervous about this. I'd never done it before, but Dale had done it. In fact, Dale's been holding it over my head as an excuse for me to go out and get the H2D. So the H2D has 2 extruder heads, okay? And one of them you could have squirting out PETG, and one of them you could have squirting out PLA. So it's very easy to do this trick where you, let's see, let me blow it up for you here, where you build your supports and then the very top layer of your support gets the other material, and therefore it will not stick permanently to the thing that it's supporting. In the X1C, because there's only a single extruder head or nozzle, single nozzle, every time you switch between materials, you have to poop out a bunch of material to make sure there's no cross-contamination. And in fact, it's sufficiently a problem that I actually put in a factor. You could do this in the slicer. I put in a factor of 1.5. So I basically said, hey, you know that amount of material you were planning on pooping out? Increase by 50%. And it worked out great for this application. So I was surprised that the bamboo slicer actually made this pretty easy. You only had to do two things. You had to select, remember my parts are in PLA. I had to select the PETG as my interface material. That was number one. And then number two is actually you get slapped in the face and you get this message that says, hey, to do this, you need to set this, this, and this to 0. Do you want to do that? And you just say yes, and it will set it to 0. This, by the way, was in the under the support column, the support heading. That's pretty much all I had to do. So every time it switched, it had to poop out. So there's a picture here. Let's see if I can show it to you. Yep, there it is. So that was my pile of poops from this whole process, and you could see it switching between white and black and black and white. Now, thank you, Dale. There it is. Right under filaments for supports. Yeah, there's the two. Tucker posted the picture of the two nozzles. Thank you. But I want to show there's the menu item. So you just pick the support material and then answer the questions and you're done. And then the H2D will use its two nozzles. The X1C will use one nozzle. Now the H2D still poops out a little bit because it's priming. It's just priming the extruder, but it's not nearly as much as what you see here from the X1C. Bottom line, worked fantastically. Had I been using this technique, I would not have had to be carving on these parts when I got the supports a little too intimate with the part. So I'm sold. And if I come up with a situation where I think I need to be doing a lot of it, then I could justify an H2D. But not yet. Tucker says, have done the PETG and PLA trick with my X1C. Worked good for the one time that I used it. LOL. Yes, exactly. It did work good. But when I get the call from the group that I'm supporting that they needed parts, I had 4 printers going full-time through approximately 9 full loads, of prints. So it was a couple of busy days to get these things cranked out. It takes a lot of time to do those switches. So if I had to do this a lot, I would switch to an H2D. I would add an H2D to the process and then save the H2D for those prints where it's doing the dual material. So that's the bottom line, is that dual material, H2D. Single material, X1C is fine. Another thing that I'm bumping up against in evaluating the whole H2D thing is power. So it has a much higher power rating. And whereas I could run 4 X1C printers on a 1500 volt amp uninterruptible power supply from UPC, I would be able to do that only one H2D. Dale is checking stock for me, where he shows that there are 18 H2Ds waiting for me an hour away. I know, Dale. Just stop. It'll happen one day, but we will serve no wine before it's time. So that's the story on the very busy 3D printing department this week. I got very nice report from the field that it was a positive result, even though we think we're going to do another material change to the back to the Polysonic Poly Pro PLA Plus. Yeah, there we go. Thank you for your support, Dale. Dale made me look at the PETG trick for the first time, and I was nervous, and it was the end of the day. I should have been in bed, but I was watching that print start. And once I saw everything going clickety-click, I was able to get to bed. But we succeeded. And those are the parts that went to the field. So that was great. Okay, so that's a wrap on the 3D printing department report, the urgent needs, the dual material support structures, and then we move on. So one of the gentlemen in our Discord server is Quentin, and Quentin is, he's got a great shop, and he loves getting machines and fixing them up and putting them to use, and he's working on an EDM machine that he bought. He is really close to firing it up. Dale also got similar brand EDM machine, and Dale's in Canada, and Quentin is in the Netherlands, and they are, I'm sorry, oops, did I misspeak? No, he's in the Netherlands. So they've been talking over the Discord server and comparing notes to get their EDMs up. That's kind of exciting. But Quentin said something to me that triggered a thought, and he said, hey, I was asked to make some parts for a commercial request to make parts. And he is not generally doing commercial work out of his shop. He's generally doing it for himself, but he's had one or two previous requests, and here comes another request. And it got me thinking about the whole topic of going from that hobby shop to actually doing commercial work as a small shop, relatively small projects. And it raises some really interesting questions. And I have had to learn some lessons. I have had to learn some hard lessons. But one lesson I learned is that when you post a picture of something you made on Instagram and 7 guys ask you if you're selling them, the answer is yes, I am. And that's how PFG Stones got started. And Kinetic Precision started doing that, not just what it was doing before, which was being a prototype shop. So Quentin gets this ping to make some parts, and I got to thinking, one of the biggest questions I get is how do you price things? And this is a hard question. So when I'm wearing my other hat, I am an engineering consultant, principally in the area of antennas, but creeping into other areas. And I've been doing antennas for 30 years. So, Alexander asks, wire or sinker EDM? So he got a wire EDM. The answer is wire EDM. Dale has another machine which is a sinker EDM, but I think this is Dale's first wire machine, and this is also Quentin's first wire machine. So there are our wire EDM startups in our group. First 3 wire machines, yes. That's another story, Dale. Dale goes out to buy, one machine, and he comes back with a warehouse. That's another story. And you're telling me how many H2Ds are down in Cambridge. I'm just pointing that out. Okay. So how do you price things? As a consultant, the number one thing you're charging for is time. So it's kind of easy. It's like I have a rate, and my rate is blah, and that's what it's going to cost you. If I spend 5 hours on your project, 10 hours on your project, it's going to be 10 times the rate, and that's what it's going to cost you. But now all of a sudden, somebody comes to you and says, hey, could you make these things for me? I'm holding up, for those of you guys on the podcast, I happen to be holding up a NAS because it was sitting on my desk. Can you make these for us? And the answer is, well, of course I can make these for you. Can you give us a quote? And that's where the inexperienced person doesn't know where to start. And I want to talk about that. Test Room 2003 is here. He says, very late at the party. The door is always open, sir. He says, hi from sunny and dry Oostkapelle, Netherlands. 26 degrees, science, 70% relative humidity. Welcome aboard. CJ Stevens says, I'm finally making a profit. I found something I like to do in a niche that needs me. Pricing hasn't been easy, but I'm working on it. Seems like the actual work is always the easy part. You came to the right topic. So there's a bunch of ways to attack this. So I'm going to start with the positives. These are the positive rules you can use, and they work really well. The first thing I always pull out is what we call the HP rule. Now, I heard this years ago with respect to Hewlett-Packard. Now, this was the old Hewlett-Packard that actually made instruments. And I tried very hard to find a hard reference to the origins of this, and I couldn't find it. So I have to go back to some old HPers and see if they can help me out. But the HP rule was, there were actually two rules. One was the main rule was 5 times parts. That's the price. That's the retail price. 5 times parts. So if it costs you, if there's $1, or let's just say $5. If there's $5 of material here, then it's 5 times 5 is 25. It's a $25 part. And that seems to be very accurate. Like, it's a great first number. Now, you can make the argument, well, what about the time on the machine? Okay, so my rule is I give each machine a rate of machine plus operator. For example, win, lose, or draw, my grinder is $150 an hour plus operator, for example, okay? Probably almost the same number for the CNC mill. So if I'm on a machine for, let's say, a half an hour, then I have to account for that half an hour. But let's just set that aside for the moment. Let's just think about cost in parts. So 5 times parts. The second rule is 3 times parts plus labor. So if labor is a major part of making something, then that rule is probably better. So you do 3 times the parts, and then you add in the labor cost. I do a spreadsheet, and I have the HP rule number 1 and the HP rule number 2 as columns. So you can start pricing things that way. So, and then after a while, when you put down each of the output of each of these rules, you could stare at it and say, yeah, that makes sense, or that's too low because, and you can tweak it from there. But it's a great starting point, okay? The second rule is called market tolerance, or affectionately known as what the market will bear. So if all of a sudden you come up with a way to do something that becomes, very desirable, and people are willing to pay, $500 for you to do, one of these. I'm holding up a random part. Don't worry about it if you're on the podcast. To do one of these, and you charge $450, and that number is way higher than the 2 HP rules, but it's what the market will bear. If you have a happy customer and you're happy, then that's a good price. If you're making jelly beans, it probably won't come out that way. We're getting to that, Dale. In consulting, I'll address Dale's comment. In consulting, Dale says, "Are you too busy? Raise your rates." That is correct. So if the phone's ringing off the hook and you have to keep saying no to people, or and this is a beginner's mistake, you fail to say no to people, then a big red light should come on the panel and say, "Raise your rates," and you have to raise your rates. And now the demand should come down. Supply and demand. So that's another that's kind of an alarm light that tells you that you need to raise your rates. But again, back to making parts. You have the HP rule number 1, HP rule number 2, and then what the market will bear. And again, if you're making something that the guy down the street can also make, what the market will bear is probably not going to be the rule you want. If you're going to make a part that the guy down the street can make, and you run your HP rules and you're happy with that number, but that guy is doing it for half that, do not chase that number. Okay? It's not worth it, because it's going to break your business rules. You're either not going to make money or you're going to lose money, and you shouldn't do that. Dale says that's called the race to the bottom. Just say no. Just say no bid. Hey, the guy down the street said he'll do it for a nickel. Well, good for him. Thank you for asking me. I will no bid. Okay. So Unix says, if the thing you're selling is hot, high market rate, it eventually may become commodity price, but you may still want to make it. In other words, it may still be worth it to you. How does one transition or even recognize this? That comes on my second list, I think, which is called the loss leader, and we'll get to that in a second. I believe I'll address that. The third thing is called what I call the demand servo, which I sort of touched on, which is if you're making something, and again, we're talking about hard goods. If you're making something and you can't keep up with demand, like everybody wants it at that price, and you can't make it fast enough, raise your price. And you bring the price up until the demand comes down, and now you're servoing the demand to match what you're able to do. I'm not addressing expansion. I'm just not addressing it. I'm just assuming in your current configuration, raise your price. Unix says, Dale is right there. Sometimes you just move on to the next thing, but sometimes it's a wildly profitable item, particularly once you've optimized enough to make many of them fast. So, okay, if you have a trade secret, and that has a specific, well, didn't Jimmy DiResta encounter that? Okay, so let's just remember that Jimmy DiResta made kits that went into, was it Walmart? I think it was Walmart. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. And it was not wildly successful because it was a niche product with a high quality maker that is not appreciated by the general public that's shopping at Walmart, and it didn't work. So Unix is saying when Walmart wants to stock PFG stones, I will not name names, but I have been twice approached by a company that said to me, how about you sell through us? We'll stock them and we'll sell them. And of course, you know what the rest is, which is, percentages and things like that. And I thought about it and I slept on it. And the first time it happened was months and months ago. The second time it happened was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And I seriously considered it and I said no. Because my process was tuned for the one-man band. And if I couldn't handle the volume that of business that I was getting in PFG stones, I would raise the price, and then the demand would come down. I have ample room to raise the price. Don't need to. Everybody's happy, but that's something you have to keep an eye on. So I call that a demand servo. Controlling, using the price to control the demand so that you don't get overloaded. Now, if you have something that has created so much demand that you can't handle it, you now have something you can now sell. I mean, selling the whole product to another company that can handle the demand and letting the demand go up, and you make your money on the sale. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to expand your business. Move to a bigger shop, hire some people, ramp it up. A second way to handle high demand. Yes, you are learning a lot from World of Warcraft, Josh. I'm just saying. Steven says, you should do an episode on how to move your shop across the country efficiently and affordably. Nobody knows how to do that. Steven, I want to hear soon that you have that absolute requirement, because I know it's coming. I could feel it. So the other thing, as a small shop, when you're making a widget and people want to buy the widget, and that machine starts going, and you start selling the widgets, you start selling Norsemans, right? Think of Mr. Grimsbo, who's got a great story. If you are solving a valuable problem, then you're going to get value out of it. I can't go down the street to the hardware store and buy a Norseman. Okay, I can't go anywhere and buy something as high quality as a Norseman. Yes, that was a little plug. So if you're selling a valuable product, sometimes we'll talk about a niche product, which is cool, but it also has to be valuable. Fidget spinners were niche products, but they weren't valuable. They had no value. So that's another thing. If you're making a valuable product, how do you know if you're making a valuable product? The market will tell you. If you make the coolest, look, I make this stuff. It's a plant food, okay? And if you feed this stuff to plants, they will grow, even indoors. Okay, this is my product. I call this dihydrogen oxide. And it is available on my Etsy store. Okay, this is I use so much of this stuff. This is all I have left. This is dihydrogen oxide. And it's on my Etsy store. And do you know how many orders for this stuff I get? None. So it's not a valuable product. Nobody wants it. Stop it. Go do something else. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the negatives. These are the things which are don't do this. All right. And the first one is the loss leader. It's like, okay, so I used to work for a company called Analog Devices. And there was a manager of the department that I worked for, who I'm not going to name him because this is sort of could be constructed as a derogatory remark. And any of my coworkers from that time would know exactly who I'm talking about. But we were making this product, and it had to hit a price point that it was hard to hit because it was very expensive. It was a chip to make. And this person said, we might lose a little bit on each one, but we'll make it up in volume. Swear to God. So now, it is hearsay because I wasn't in the room when this happened, but that's a stupid thing to think. If you can't make a profit, you can't make a profit. There are cases where somebody's going to come out, they're going to say, look, our business plan is that we're going to sell these clothespins at a nickel, okay? And the first 10,000 of them are going to cost you 7 cents to make. But once the volume goes up, you can start making them cheaper. So we want to start. Okay, that's a marketing expense. Okay, on the spreadsheet, that's a marketing expense. You're literally going to spend money to test the market. But if you can't get from selling thousands to selling hundreds of thousands, you have to have a date on which you killed the project and write it off as a marketing expense. But you're not gonna make money selling something at a loss. And I see people doing this for reasons that just astound me, or doing it too long. The next one is don't confuse pricing with marketing. You know, there's this idea that if you sell something cheap, lots of people are going to want it because of the price. That's what Apple does, right? Apple does that, right? No. If anything, I just bought a set of, after months and months of gut-wrenching, indecision, I bought a set of Apple AirPods. These are their wireless earpieces that run on Bluetooth. And I needed a set of AirPods or earbuds, whatever you want to call them, for reasons. Another set. The AirPods are $249. The last set that I bought were Raycons, and I think they were $35. And I'm like, what does Apple do? They're going to lower their price to $35? No. This is it. It's a high quality product, costs $249. I bought a pair. And I said, what's the worst that can happen? And I had other reasons for buying it that I won't get into. So I bought them. And you know what? They're fantastic. And they're worth every penny. But they weren't going to get me as a customer by lowering the price. That would have been a bad choice. So don't confuse marketing with pricing. You're not going to get market by lowering your price and keep it and make a profit and have a good product. Sometimes it's the opposite. Also, don't confuse the product with the recipe. So if you have a recipe for how to do something, like the Honorable Robin Renzetti making spindles that will hold 1 nanometer TIR, I swear. And he has this process. And if he does his process and he cranks out that product and his customer is very happy, which is more valuable, the product or the process? Answer, the process. So in your business, in your small shop, as you decide you're going to make, these absolutely magnificent oatmeal raisin cookies, your recipe for making those cookies is very valuable. And that's, don't forget that. Don't publish your recipe and then say, come and buy these from me. That's not going to work. And finally, you don't need the whole market. You don't need the whole market. So, John Grimsmo makes a knife that's magnificent. Here it is. This is I keep my Norseman here because I like to play with it. So he makes this absolutely fantastic product. Does John have the entire knife market? Unix Carbide says ramen shop economics. Thank you. I take that as a compliment. And I understand what you're saying. That's the recipe, right? The ramen shop it's all about its recipe. But here's a magnificent product made by Grimsmo Knives, right? It's the Norseman, and it is superb. Does John have the whole knife market? Does John have the whole, whatever this is, 4-inch folder market? Nope. Does he need the whole market? No. So, if part of your business plan is to corner the market, to be the supplier of these widgets on 100% of the market, that's just dumb. Okay, you do not need it, but you need to make a good product, have a good market, and make a profit on it. Those are the requirements. Yeah, he Dale says he has his own market. Oh, Robin says Kung Fu Panda secret sauce. Yeah, that's exactly correct. So I hope there's some tips in there if you're this, in your small shop and you either got approached to make some commercial products or you're starting to stir up some commercial product ideas. I hope some of those ideas are useful to you. But you got to start, and don't be afraid of failure. Be afraid of not starting. And there's a lot to be said for being good at marketing, which is to say, go shake some people's hands and show them some stuff. And if you have something, you'll know it pretty quick. If you're, some of us in our community like to sit in our shop and do shop things. I like to run the machines. Okay, I like to run around and make sure all the machines are fed and happy, and make something and then measure the something and see how perfect it is. And that's all great. And after you're done with all that, you have not sold a product. So you actually have to sell a product. And if you don't know how to do that, or if you're not comfortable with that, you can learn how to do it the easy way or the hard way. You can hire somebody to do it the easy way or the hard way. And there's a bunch of approaches. But the most important thing is to start. Robin says, don't underestimate the total cost of operating the machine, especially a wire EDM. Yes. So on your spreadsheet, we talk about clutter credits, right? We talk about $3 a month per a 2x2 foot area, right? So you have your clutter credits, you have your electric, you have your coolant, you have your tooling. You have to have all of those on your spreadsheet. Unix Carbide says, but Spencer, don't lose the one key bit of sitting in the shop doing stuff, nurturing inspiration and creativity to make awesome things, and then business. On that note, I will let... Yeah. How many businesses sell meh stuff? Asks Unix Carbide. And that's a really good question. There's a lot of meh stuff out there. So, boy, this we can go for another hour on this. It is a magnificent intersection if you could find doing something you love, which while making a profit, and I will add, while making other people happy, or giving other people a tool to do things that make them happy. That's a really neat intersection. If you're in the middle of the wheat field You're not at the intersection. All right. Well, you guys are awesome. Josh says, "Be the tool that makes you happy." I've never heard anybody get called a tool before that made them smile, but that's a good example. What a great community we have. I mean, we have a lot of people that are doing it. We're making stuff. We're learning how to make stuff. We're making better and better stuff, and it's a way to make money, also, secondarily, and that'll do it. So I think next week we're here, unless I'm missing something, and we will. Yeah, next week's pretty. Oh, I see. Next Saturday is blueberry picking. I'm just pointing that out. And then Sunday we will be here. If you guys have any particular topics other than picking up and moving Stephen to New Mexico, which we could all chip in on. I mean, if we use all of our vehicles, we could probably get your stuff over to New Mexico. Let me know. We have a Discord server. The invite for the Discord server is at pfg.gg/discord. The entire library of PFG Lives is at, I know this is going to come as a shock, PFG.Live. Really. If you need something flat, or to make something else flat, or just to be flat, head on over to PFGstones.com and pick yourself up a set of PFG Stones. You won't believe it until you have it in your hands. They are that magnificent. So for now, get flat, stay flat, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care.